Oh,
We
there we
are.
are.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Sketch Wagon. I'm Christina Wald and this is Amy Bogard.
Hello,
And
everyone.
we are talking a little bit about what our favorite art supplies are for travel. But first, it's been a month. So, Amy, what have you been doing the last month?
Well, since we last talked, I went away to band camp for a week. I didn't make any art because I just kind of took the week off and pursued the music for a week. And right after that, I had a 12-hour turnaround at home, did a load of laundry, and then came up to Maine where we have family time. So we've been kind of doing a lot of swimming. I've been doing a lot of painting, and yeah, here for another day, and then tomorrow I'm off to Ireland for the next
Oh, how
workshop
exciting.
trip. So, yeah,
Uh,
more
You've
painting.
picked more painting and you've picked some nice, cool climates. How has it been? Has it been warmer than usual or has it been perfect?
We had a couple days where it was warm, but in the last year or two, our folks up here have gotten a heat pump situation. So we have air conditioning for the first time up
Oh,
here, which is really nice. So we can get in from the heat. But generally, we're by the water. And so if you get hot, you just get in the water. It's just a couple miles away, and we can, depending on the tide, hop in the ocean. And then we spent a week up by a lake. So, we've always just been near the water. And we were nowhere near as hot as it's been back home in Ohio. So
where it's the
I've
heat
always gone
dome.
north in the summer. Like I always get out of Ohio in the summer because it's so hot there.
Oh my gosh, it has been really bad. Even we were in Cleveland last weekend and it was really hot. Well, it alternated being really hot and raining torrentially. And so
Yeah.
what happened was, and I did a little cartoon. If anyone follows me on social media, that's what my cartoon was about. Because when we arrived, our friend Klein has an annual cookout. And so he had us park in his yard because he has all the people park their cars in his yard. Well, Troy tried to move the car and it kept raining really hard off and on all day. And our car got stuck in the little
Oh
ditch
no.
by his yard. So we had to
Oh,
call a tow truck. And
oh no.
we were, I mean, it's one of those things. And,
Yeah.
but like, it's one of those things you call your insurance and then they say you have to use just the app. And after we got on the app, then it took a couple hours. And so they got the car out at midnight, and this guy that was one of Klein's neighbors came running out and said, "Oh my gosh, what are you doing? Why are you taking my car?" And then we were like, "Oh, it's our car." And he said, "Oh, thank goodness, I thought my truck was being repossessed." And then he
Oh
kind of laughed.
no. God.
So it was sort of an exciting time. And then,
Yeah.
of course, that was right after I went to Sketcherfest for the first time.
Yeah, and where was
And
that?
it was in Edmonds, Washington, which is about half an hour north of Seattle, and it's on the
Oh,
water. There's a ferry
lovely.
that goes to Port Gamble, and people really line up for that because I get a lot of people go there to picnic for the day, or there's a lot of places to stay, and it would be backed up. There was one lane just for the ferry there that would back up like for 2 hours at a
Yeah.
time. And but we finally got to do it after Sketcherfest. But it was a really wonderful. If you love sketching and you love travel, its focus is travel sketchbooks, and they had a bunch of artists from all over the world that
Yeah, I need to get
just
out to that some year. That'd be
you
great.
should. It was really fun. I taught a workshop mostly on storytelling in sketchbooks, and so it's a little bit mixing comics into your sketchbook practice and overhearing conversations and writing those down.
Yeah.
And it was really, people were really into it. They enjoyed the workshop a lot. We walked around. I had my workshop end in a gelato place so everybody could get, it was in the afternoon, and I was like, everybody will have a sugar low by the end. So
Yeah.
we did our last sketch thing at the gelato shop, so that was
Oh,
nice.
that's a good
And it
idea.
was just a really charming area, almost like a small town. I would probably compare it to like if you go to Mariemont or something like that, where it's like
Oh,
out of the
sweet.
city, but it's and it's on the water, and they have a really nice beach area, and it was, the sunsets there were really spectacular, so it was
Yeah,
a great place to sketch.
we've had crazy sunsets here because there's fires happening in Canada. And
Yes.
so the sunsets up here have been like something out of Dune.
Yes, they've been
It's been
incredible.
wild. Yeah, I mean,
Have you painted any of them?
yeah, yeah, I did
Uh-huh.
actually. Last night was remarkable though. I mean, it was just like neon red. it was a
Uh-huh.
bit creepy actually, but kind of beautiful. So
Uh-huh. It's
yeah.
amazing when you think I mean, whenever you think you're exaggerating what Mother Nature does, it can always outdo anything you do.
Yeah, it's pretty remarkable. It's kind of like every cloud, it's beautiful sunsets, but I feel bad for the wildfires going on. But
Yes, that's really unfortunate, and hopefully that will be over soon. I think it hadn't quite started, it was just starting then, but the weather was actually perfect the whole time we were there. It was one of the mornings when we went sketching, the first day of Sketcherfest. I was actually a little chilly that morning, and
mhm.
that was perfect because it was like started out in the 50s, and then by noon or so it warmed up to the 60s, and I was thinking I could live here. This is really
Yeah,
nice.
that's really ideal. Yeah, that's what we've been
I felt
having up
so
here.
good.
It gets up in the
Yeah.
upper 70s and it's just perfect.
Yeah, it was just it
We're
was
very
perfect
lucky.
and beautiful, and I highly recommend going to Sketcherfest. They have a nice mix of talks and workshops, and it was really nice because Urban Sketchers Seattle had planned a bunch of events during, before, and after, so people could
Oh,
sketch
nice.
from the local
You kind
chapter,
of
and you got to
piggyback on it. Yeah.
exactly, and you got to meet a bunch of people, and everybody was really friendly and lovely, and it was a wonderful experience. It was started, I think, 3 years ago by Gabi Campanario, who started urban sketching, and he
Yeah.
wanted to just do sort of a small thing, and it had a lot of press though, like the Seattle paper, which she is an illustrator for the Seattle Times, ran a couple articles, and they also had an article in Seattle Magazine, and it was just a really nice celebration of sketching and
It's so cool to see
storytelling and
how
sketching.
urban sketching and all not necessarily urban, but just people wanting to draw and wanting to get out there
Exactly.
and paint a little bit and not have it be a big deal. That's what I think's cool about sketching is like
Yeah.
it doesn't have to be, if you invest in a few little bits and pieces, which we're going to talk about today, like it
Yeah.
doesn't have to be, you don't have to break the bank. Like it can be pretty straightforward and simple. And then if you decide you like it, you just sort of over time like
Build up your
collect
arsenal.
build up your art supplies. And I
Yes.
know like before we get into supplies, like the specific ones we have, I love to look around. There are a number of places I know in Cincinnati, but they're around the rest of the country are creative reuse stores. Like
Yes.
they're almost like thrift stores, but for art supplies. And so you can often find those. So look, if you're interested in getting supplies and the budget's low or whatever, check there first because sometimes you can get like, gently used sets of watercolors or books that only have a few pages used in them or whatever. And then there are ways um that you can treat the pages like and we can get into all that, but
Yes,
like it doesn't
definitely.
have to be like as we're talking about supplies, I can imagine people like getting on the Amazon and being
Yeah,
like, "Oh my god, that pen is $35 and that watercolor set's $100 and blah blah blah." But we'll get into like this hour, we'll get into our favorite supplies, and then there are ways to get smaller versions of them or samples or get involved with your local urban sketchers because I know that I often have extra supplies that I'm willing to share or can get people started on things with a small like dot card or whatever. So I just wanted to mention like
excellent. Yeah. And we could add some links too of some of the places that are local. Um,
yeah, yeah, if people are tuning in from Cincinnati, like I know
mhm,
Scrap It Up is in Pleasant
which they
Ridge.
also are a sponsor for the summit, which happens this weekend. So thank you,
Oh,
Scrap It Up, for
yeah, I'm
sponsoring
sorry to miss the
our
summit.
Ohio
I'm
summit.
always in Ireland for this summit now. I was at the first one and then the Ireland class became a thing and now it's
Mm.
always on the same weekend. So I hate to
Yes,
miss
and
it.
we miss you. But thank you,
Yeah, I
Scrap It
miss
Up,
you
for your
too. Yeah, but
thank you.
yeah, thank you, Scrap It Up. They are so wonderful. They keep a
Yes.
running tally of how much um stuff they've kept out of the landfill. Like people might have otherwise thrown away these bits and pieces of art supplies, and it's so fun. You can go in with like $4 and come out with enough stuff to like give a go on a needlepoint project or try your
Hmm.
hand at paints or get some stuff for the kids to paint rocks or whatever. Like, it's very affordable, and
Hmm.
they just like, I think it started from an environmental perspective, and it's turned into, like, not just that, but like it's a real nice place for the community to come in on a,
Hmm.
on a hot day with your kids and pick out a few
I
little
love
bits
that
and pieces. So
accessibility aspect. And, one
yes.
thing that you were talking about urban sketching, and one thing that I was talking about in my lecture is that I said that a travel sketchbook was a mix of urban sketching and just other sketchbook stuff,
Yeah.
because a lot of times we do sketches, like, especially because it's interesting to tell stories in your sketchbook, and some of it that is live sketched, but some of it you might have something funny that happens to you, that and that's what the storytelling is like, that you might put in your sketchbook later or write about, just
Yep.
for, like, interesting stuff happens all the time, and you may not be able to capture it immediately in your sketchbook, but it's still
Right.
an
That
interesting
is a
incident you want to
difference.
record. Yeah. And so
Yes.
it's a mix of stuff. Like, some of it's done live, and occasionally there's like little anecdotes that I'll write in there with, like, maybe some sort of sketch support. And
Yeah.
I like to kind of mix it up. And that's one
Well,
thing that I've been trying to.
I even have a little camera. It's
Oh,
not a
yeah.
camera really. It's a little printer. And it's
Oh,
called,
somebody had one of those there.
yeah, it's called the Canon Ivy.
Uh huh.
And I got it for my birthday, and it has these little sticker pages, that, like, if you meet somebody interesting and you want to put them in your book, you can print out a little picture
Oh,
and
that is
stick it
so cool.
in your
I love
book.
that.
So it's kind of like, it's a night, like, here's my page from the band camp week.
That is such a beautiful spread. I love the text around the edge. That's a really interesting design.
Well, the text around the edge for that one was because like I said, I didn't sketch while I was there, but I kind of had roughly written notes in between classes and whatever. And so the text around the edge are all the tunes that we learned through the week. And then I had a few pictures that, I treasure, and then kind of did a couple sketches, one of the bear that was around campus, and then one of my teachers, and the whole page came together nicely. And that's just a reminder, like, I know Urban Sketchers is very much about on site, and that
Mhm.
has its place, and I do a fair amount of that. But
Mhm.
I think that cataloging your life, even if it's later in the day or a week later, and doing it in an artful way, that's kind of my jam. Like, I really love
Yeah,
to
I
do
mean,
that.
journaling, and I
Journaling,
think that
yeah.
you can have both, and
Yes.
that's kind of how my pages are. Like, I worked on big pages while I was at Sketcherfest, but they were like little vignettes of different things that happened. Many of them done live. Some of them were sketches after,
Yeah.
just to record the moment to make sure I got everything in there. And I'm
Yeah,
trying to make
exactly.
them more of a journal so I remember more what happened. And that is really helpful when publishing the travel logs later too. Like, I may not write elaborately about them in my journal, but at least it gives me the bullet points so I can develop that later, so I
Well,
know what happened.
I have a term for that, and I even have a little stamp that I
Oh,
carry
yeah,
with
what's
me,
it called?
the ta-da list.
Oh,
So,
I love
like,
that. The
if,
ta-da
like,
list.
down one side of a page spread, you have ta-da instead of to-do, because we spend our lives doing to-do lists, but
Yes,
I like to keep a ta-da list. So say you have a busy travel
incredible.
day, you just bullet point, like, when you get a chance at the airport, you can be like, "Oh, left via taxi at 6:15, our taxi driver was blah, blah, blah." If you wanna take notes of these little things that you wanna remember, you can just kinda list them down as you go, and then you can fill in the gaps later in your visual diary, and then it's less to forget. So
Yeah, I mean, because there's so many funny and interesting things that happen, and it's easy to not commemorate them, and that's
right,
the
and
big
if you
struggle. How do you keep the not just beautiful pictures, but, like, sometimes the weird stuff, like the car getting stuck in the
yeah,
grass, like, sometimes stuff like that is what makes your story interesting.
yeah,
When
or
things go
even
smoothly all the time.
if you travel someplace that uses a different language, it's
Mhm.
fun to write down different terms,
Yes,
or,
signs that are
just kind of
interesting.
lines or little snippets of linguistic idiosyncrasies of the area. You can kind of write those down along the way, and it's a fun, they're like a linguistic snapshot of
Yes.
a specific place. So yeah, it's a mix. But we should get into it with our
I know. I was
supplies.
like, we should. So let's get started, Amy.
Yeah.
So like, let's think about this in escalation. And
Oh yeah.
so, like, if you just are going to go out with just a couple supplies you can stick in your purse, what are the ones that are always there?
Okay, so like so I'll start. When I have a class that is getting ready to go, people are like, "What all do I need to bring?" And I always the first thing I say is you need a book, a little set of colors, and something to draw with. And if you have that, that's all you need. So like generally speaking, I'll carry some kind of book. This is like my day-to-day kind of sketchbook. It has everything from grocery lists to inspirational quotes to what I did last week at band camp. And then I would carry like a little bag, which this is literally like 3 by 7 maybe. And in it, I would have a pencil, a brush, and this is like one of those little travel brushes that comes
Mm-hmm.
together and becomes, and then a little ink pen. And then for the colors, I just have like a little jar for water and the tiniest little set of watercolors. So, well, not the tiniest. I do have other tiny ones, but this is the one I brought with me. And Christina has crafted. She's made a teeny, 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 tiny watercolor set that you can wear on your wrist, but that's a story for her to tell. So that would be the smallest thing, and I often will have this particular kit just in my bag. And I've heard of people leaving like a simple set of watercolors in just the glove compartment of their car. Like for example, so I carry when I'm on the go, like traveling, I have my van. This is
Mm-hmm.
like my little van, and it's just a toiletry case, and it carries the right amount of stuff for being on the go. But I have these, trying to figure out if I have the right one. You could, if you had on the day to day, you could just carry one of these little paper dot cards. So it has like a mix of primary colors and a white. This particular one is from the company called Beam
Mm-hmm.
Paints, out of Canada. They are an amazing company, and I'll talk more about them. But you could just have a dot card, one of those water brushes. Well, here's one. They have a little well in them that has water, and then the little brush is like a little acrylic kind of brush, and they often have really
Mm-hmm.
nice little points, and I'm not crazy about them, but they do in a pinch. And then you could have just a little, a little stack of just paper postcards. That would be enough. So you really don't need a ton with you to be ready kind of all the
Mm-hmm.
time, and you can keep it in a little satchel. Um, and then so that's like my go-to, like my
Mm-hmm.
daily kind of have with me sort of
Mm-hmm.
supplies. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times if I have like if it's one of those things where you're on a tour and you have 10 minutes at each stop or
Yeah.
something like that, I usually have my little tiny sketchbook. Like one that's about this size because it
Yeah.
fits in my purse, and I will either sketch with a ballpoint pen or sketch with. I really like these Tombow pens a lot. I got this set because for going to Poland um, next week, and I like those, or a ballpoint pen. You could even do a lot of shading. I like really cheap ones, so I use this like these Bic pens. I love, they have
Yeah.
a crystal Bic pen that is there's two sizes. Get the smaller size. The only place I've seen this, unfortunately, really is on Amazon, and you can get a set that has a bunch of different colors. And I usually like to use this or the purple or the blue, and you can sketch in that and do some shading and cross hatching and stuff. And so then all you need is your book and this. And then I also, because I recently downgraded to wearing a really small purse. And so then I also have, we were talking about mini palettes. My husband he's an engineer. He used to be at Kenner Toys, and he worked on stuff for Ghostbusters, Rat Fink, Pirates of the Caribbean, Star Wars. He's like designed a bunch of stuff for that. But I did a little sketch of something that was, because a lot of places now won't let you bring your person. Like you have to, like if you go to a lot of museums around the world, they make you check your person. And so you can only bring a tiny amount of art supplies. And the thing that's great about this is that it can be attached to you. So it's this big, and you put the paint in little dots here. So you can see this. Hopefully you can, yeah, you can kind of
Yeah.
see it. And so the paint goes in here, and I actually will put a link of how we fill it. And then he put two, there's a clip in here, and Troy also put, like, it can print in two colors. So if you can see here, it, and I don't know if you're seeing it, there's a little blue arrow on the back of this. So the clip comes out, it's a friction fit. So the clip comes in and out. And then you could put this in with the Velcro, and it will then attach to your finger, which is really nice. So you can see now this is just slides in, and you use the Velcro, and you can put it on your finger. I usually put it like this, so that, because I'm holding the sketchbook, and then I can use a water brush.
I've seen
With,
them where you can have them on your wrist as
yeah,
well.
this
Like
one is
there's,
actually on your finger.
yeah,
So it Velcros to your finger. It's not big enough for your wrist. And
right.
it's really tiny. And then you can keep, a couple of your favorite colors. Like if you, a lot of times when I do this type of sketching where it's this minimal, I will just do monochromatic. So I
Yeah.
might have this half filled with the Payne's gray, and then maybe a couple accent colors. You can have several of these with different color palettes. I did a little downloadable guide that I can put a link to of how to deal with the limited palettes for these. But it really then, like with a water brush, which I like Caran d'Ache's water brush, and I also like the blue ones. What are the blue ones? They're Niji, I think, Niji water
Oh, the
brushes.
Japanese ones?
Yes, I like those
Yeah.
too.
They have
I'll,
like a
I'll
light blue,
Yeah, I mean,
yeah,
make sure it just has a bladder so that the water doesn't go back into, like, some water brushes that I've had trouble with. Like when you squeeze them out, they'll squeeze paint water back into them. But
right.
most, like the ones with a bladder where they don't allow that to happen, are the best
Yeah.
ones to get. But whatever
Right.
water brush that you like. And so that's just like
Well, and
a
that
minimal
saves you
amount of
from
supplies.
when you're at, like, for example, at a museum,
Yeah.
you're not allowed to have, like, quote unquote water media. So if
Mm-hmm.
you just have the water brush and your little set of paints, you can get around that. But I will often travel with just a little thing of colored pencils.
Mm-hmm. And those
So,
are good for museums. We were just
yep,
sketching at the art museum in Cincinnati, and they won't let us use anything but color pencils or
right.
pencil. So I
Yeah.
used a Blackwing for that. They don't like you to bring pens anymore.
And black
Um,
wings look like, need to not assume that anyone watching that black wings are like these.
they're
Here's a
great.
white one. They're really great. They've got a lovely, this one's the black wing pearl. They come in different flavors, but they've got a lovely eraser. And I have a number of them in my collection. Here's another one, black wing
Yeah,
matte.
I've got this one here right now.
Yeah, they're really
I was just
lovely.
sketching today.
Yeah.
So for not just, when I say sketching, it wasn't for my sketchbook. It was for a book cover I'm working on. So I was sketching that.
You're a
Sometimes
busy
I actually
girl.
use my art supplies for my day job.
Well, a couple more things on paints. So like that's my little tiny set was that little one that I showed you a second ago. But I also often carry with me a traveling set of I was talking about that company Beam earlier.
Hmm.
So they sell these little roll-ups, and I've
Oh,
crammed as
nice. That's
many of
really
these
cool.
paint stones in here. So they sell these things called paint stones. They're these little, like, little watercolor,
Hmm.
and they're done. What's neat about them is they're done in without using any plastic.
Hmm.
So they're paper and beeswax, and they're pretty awesome. And they roll up into this little thing. So you could this I
What a
have
great
sometimes,
idea.
yeah, sometimes I've traveled with just this, and in it is rolled up a pencil and a brush and like a little towel for wiping off. So you would have just this and your book. And so you
Hmm.
can again be packing really light. So I take both of those. And then sometimes I have a larger set. My Schminke set is
Mm-hmm.
a larger set of watercolors, but since I've begun to really kind of scale back my supplies for my trip overseas, I've moved to the tiny palette. And that is, you'd be surprised, like that little thing that you have on your finger
Mm-hmm.
doesn't seem like a lot of paint, but it is more than enough paint for an afternoon at the very least, if not
Oh yeah.
more. You can get a lot out of a little dot of paint. And so, you can take advantage of those sample sheets that, like, I know
Mm-hmm.
Core
Mm-hmm.
paints, they will often, sometimes you can get samples from art supply stores.
Oh, yes,
Um,
they put a lot of those in goodie bags, for example, at the summit and
exactly. So
symposium and
kind
other
of,
things.
yeah, kind of look out for those, or if you have, an artist who's a mentor or whatever, have them choose a few of their favorite colors and dip out little dots and let it dry completely, and then you've got a little sample of paints to try. So
And some
that's kind
people
of a
get
great
those
way to.
sheet ones. Have you seen those ones where it's like a book of sheets of color and it has a
Yes, I
bunch of
can't
color?
remember the
I
name
don't know
of
who makes
those.
them. We'll
I
we'll
can't
try to
remember the
put that in
name
the
of
show
them.
notes. Yeah.
Yeah, they're cool, and there's a lot of paint there. I think the thing that I would say that because I've had people bring them, and I've had to sort of I've had to limit, because those, like, fan out like those paint
Yes.
sample things. And what I think happens there is you're almost spoiled for choice. You're like like analysis paralysis, kind of like you have so many colors you don't know what to use. So I'll
Paralyzed.
yeah, so I'll tell people, like, just use this and this and ignore everybody else, because sometimes
Mhm.
having that many colors is too much. Like, you can
Yeah, I
have.
mean that's a discussion we can have a future show where I was just talking about Payne's Gray. Like a lot of times, a simple value study is really powerful in your
Absolutely.
sketchbook with just one color, and I
Yeah,
think
that's
that
a great
that's
idea. That's a great idea. And
especially if you don't have a lot of time. It's great to have that limited palette because
yeah,
it fills in a lot of gaps without being,
absolutely.
and you get the feel of the place without, getting into a lot of the, like you said, agony of choice with color, but also when you are doing just a value study, sometimes it shows better and you get a better idea because then you're thinking more about the values and the light than,
Yeah.
the palette. And I
I
think
may have
sometimes it can
said
be very
this
effective.
I may have said this last time, I don't remember, but there was a painter up here um in Maine that I visited the studio, and up on the wall there was a big sign that said, color gets all the glory, but value does all the work. And I've
It's
always loved
true.
that, because it's true. Like, you have to kind of get your lights and darks first. But
Hmm.
maybe, like, I know you like the ballpoint pens, but
Hmm.
we could probably spend almost the rest of the time talking about mark making materials, like
Yeah.
pens, different varying pens
Yeah.
and
I mean,
pencils.
like I said, you said you bring your schminke. Sometimes I have a core palette
Mhm.
that, and that's how you pronounce QOR. I found out on one of their videos once. I didn't know. I didn't know either. And it's core,
It's not
and
straightforward, for
it
sure.
is not at all. But it is core watercolor, and I love their colors because they're very concentrated as far as pigment. And I think the children's book illustrator in me loves to have a lot of bright color, and
Yeah,
so I like their colors a lot. I always am experimenting with different types of colors, and obviously there's some other watercolors that if you love that granulated look,
yeah.
where like I think there's a couple like Daniel Smith, and then the
Tinka's got
Roman
one called
Aquarius colors are really granulated and really great if you love
yeah,
that.
there's one called Tundra Violet, which is like a
Hmm.
purpley brown that separates really well, and it's nice for stonework, like if you're doing,
Is
like,
that Daniel Smith?
I thought it was Schminke, but it might be Daniel
Is it Smith?
Smith.
Okay, I wasn't sure.
I don't remember, but and there's another one, like, it's a black one. Yeah, it's outside of my it's at home. But anyway, what about pens, Christina? What pens do you
Well,
like
we were
to
just
use?
talking about uh I love these Tombow pens, and I actually have their brush pens too, which are
Mhm.
really nice. I think they're Um, and then you were talking about you work a lot with the um, the fountain pen.
Fountain,
You said
yeah.
you use mostly the Lamy, and I
No,
have a couple.
I actually mix it up. I have,
Okay, so talk a little bit about your fountain pens.
yeah, so I do have Lamy pens, which they look like this. They're colorful, and I'll have different ones with different colors. This one just happens to have pink in it. This one has black, and then so those are the Lamy pens, which we'll put all these in the show notes. Um, so that's one brand. Another brand that I really really like are these Twisby Eco pens.
Oh, those are cool.
Yeah, they're really nice. And so basically, like real quick, the Lamy pens they come with ink in little cartridges like this.
Oh yeah.
But the cartridges they come with, the ink is water soluble. So that can be fun if you just wanted to go with like a pen and a water brush and use the
People love
ink
it.
as,
Yeah.
yeah, that can be one way of working. But I like to have ink that won't run. And so I actually do put water proof ink in my pens, and I go through, I use them enough and I go through them enough and I give them a nice good soak in between
hmm
filling them, that
What
I
do you
have
soak
not,
them in?
just warm water, maybe some vinegar. I don't
Okay.
really worry about it too much. And so these little cartridges are, you can get them empty. They're like refillable. You can refill the cartridge. So that the Lamy uses those, and you have to kind of be brand specific with those because, for example, another pen I have is the Sailor pen. I can't remember the name of this. It's a Japanese one, but this one has a different type of converter, so, like, you have to order these little empties in order to put ink in them. But what's nice about this Sailor pen is I don't know if you can see that, but it's
Yeah,
got
I
this, like,
can. It's a nice view of it.
it's yeah, so it has, like, a bent nib, so you can use the very tip of it, the really tippy tip of it, to make really dainty lines, but then you can use the broader tip here to do, um to do thicker lines. So it's almost calligraphic, but not quite. And so it really works for lines that need to have some variety in them. And so I keep a brown ink in here and often use it for trees and things like that. And then for the Twisby pens, so Twisby is TWSBI, Twisby, and this is called an eco pen. These you fill directly through the nib.
Oh
You, like,
wow.
literally go in and then
So
you
like a
and
dip pen
it's
almost.
like a dip pen, except you, like, suction it up with
Oh,
with
that's
this,
smart. That's
and you
cool.
just pull right out. So you can be on the go and pull, like, you might have a little, I don't have it with me over here, but you can have just a little jar of ink if you're going through the ink on your travels. You can have a little jar, and I would suggest, like, getting, like, Nalgene sells these really good, they are liquid proof, like, you can carry the ink with you and make it wide enough so you can get in there and pull up the ink. So I have 2 of those with a couple different ink colors. And then I have one more that's like a tiny pen, that I like, which I got through the Beam company. And this one's a Kawiko Sport. So
Ooh.
those are my
Do you ever do
go.
alterations? There's a couple people that do workshops like at the symposium that talk about altering your pens. Like but actually what they're doing is what that pen did, where it's like they add a bent nib so that you can do different
Yeah,
types of lines.
I
So I think
should I should take that class because I have an old pen that the nib got bent during a fall. It
uh-huh.
it
You
it
know, stuff
dropped.
happens when you're
Stuff
out.
happens. But so
Yeah.
I carry those with me, generally speaking, and then I often have a few little micron pens
Mhm.
just after, and then I always carry little white gel pens for
Mhm.
just hits of of highlight, which I know the watercolorists are probably all clutching their pearls at this point, but
Well, it's a
uh,
sketchbook. You do whatever. I mean,
exactly.
I
That's
have,
the important thing to remember is not to be too
yeah, just find what
precious.
you like. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I love the Posca pens, and now I have a set of color ones. I use the white one the most. So if I'm doing minimal, I'll have the white one, but I have a set of color ones. These are the fine nib.
Yeah.
So you can see these have a
Have
fine
you
point.
flown with those yet,
I
though?
have, and I haven't had any issues.
Okay, just be
Now
careful.
I do like certain pens, like my when I bring travel with my lammies, I put those in a plastic bag,
Yep.
and then certain paints, like sometimes I'll bring my golden paint, and you can see it's good I had it in a plastic bag because the lid opened, and even though I had it taped shut and got paint all over the bag, but not my luggage, so that was a good
Yeah,
thing.
so
Um
that's something to remember, like, since we are,
yes.
all about traveling and sketching, is
Mhm.
if you've got any kind of liquid or fluids,
Double bag it.
especially in pens, they can leak when
Even
pressure
ballpoint
happens.
pens can blow up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
ballpoint pens, Uniball, any of those can blow up. Um, and like I've had the micron pens explode on me on in
Mhm.
the air. So it's best to just have them in a couple Ziploc bags and
Mhm.
let them kind of equalize out. And then just one more quick thing to mention is the inks that I use for waterproof inks. Um, Noodlers is a great company, and so they have a color called Bulletproof Black,
Oh,
and if you draw with it, it's considered bulletproof and as soon as it's dry, which is usually about 20 seconds. So I like using that. There's another one from them called Lexington Gray, which
I'll
is
have to get
is
some
a
of those.
yeah, it's a little less. The Lexington Gray is just a milder, dark color. It's not quite as contrasty as the black. And
Mhm.
then I like Birmingham inks. They're out of Philadelphia, and that's a small, like, couple of brothers run that company, and they have some beautiful colors. And I also like I can never pronounce it, but I'll get it. It's uh, De Atramentis ink. And they have my favorite color is a fuchsia color. It's
Oh, yeah?
a pink color. And sometimes just for giggles, I will do my line work in this like hot pink. And it's an interesting play with colors. So just switching up what color you use as your line for your drawings can give a whole different kind of a
Mhm.
different feel to your drawing. So consider that, like, you don't always have to be drawing in black or
No,
gray.
no, I mean, like, if the ballpoint pens, and I have a set of microns now that come in a bunch of different colors that are nice
Mhm.
for stuff. These are
You
Fudasaki.
drew with Sharpies for a number of years.
Yeah, I
What
still like these Sharpie pens. These are they're fine pen, and it's permanent. Now I've heard that it's not archival, but I don't know. But these
Yeah,
last a really long time, and their tips don't break, so I love them.
that
But
is really good.
this is a brush pen, the Fujisaki, and so it's really nice if you want. This is really nice for like comic kind of look if you want in your sketchbook,
Mhm.
because you could get that dynamic line. I mean, you could also get a line with a brush, like a lot of comic book artists paint with a brush, and you can get a really nice long bristle brush for painting and lettering, and that works too. But on the go, it's nicer to have something like this because you can't always have your liquid ink in like a vessel to draw with when
Right, you
you're
can
on
put your
site.
liquid inks
Yeah.
into those brush pens. And also the thing to remember with the brush
Yes,
pens
that's true.
the thing to remember with the brush pens, is, like, it is nice to get, good ones, like you said, like, ones that actually work in a certain way, but you don't wanna get too precious about any of it really, because,
You're
you're
right.
liable to lose it. You're like, I'm sure I've left micron pens and Lucky pencils behind. Like, you try to kind of spread your stuff out on, like, sometimes if I'm in like a busy situation, I'll try to have like a little towel or something that everything kind of lays on to keep everything together. But if you're sitting in the grass sketching somewhere, it is very easy to lose some of these things. So, you know, don't waste your money on like super expensive things. Just get like kind of, mid quality, does the job. And that's a lot of these
That's a good point for
fountain
traveling.
Yeah, especially for traveling. And my fountain pens, I don't think I've paid more than 35 or $40
Yeah,
at
don't bring your
most.
Mont Blanc pen for sketching.
Exactly. Exactly. I mean, I
We'll
hear
use
those
that
are
at
wonderful
home.
pens, but I've never used one. So
Yeah, you might want to keep those at home for your more specialized.
exactly.
I mean, yeah,
Exactly.
you don't want to lose your really expensive stuff, and
Yeah. How do you feel
and so
about mechanical pencils?
I don't love them, but some people swear by them. As a matter of fact, the pencils that I use are either the Blackwing, or have like boxes and boxes of these Dixon how do you pronounce it? Ticonderoga pencils, and these are just number two lead pencils, and that's what I do 90% of my sketching with. And
Huh.
these are super cheap, and actually I buy those little erasers you stick on the end if I need an extra eraser. Although lately I've been using these kneaded erasers a lot, and I always
Yeah.
put them in a bag too, because those actually are probably the best for your page so that you don't
Yeah.
tear it up. Like these erasers are probably a little hard on it. So, and these are pretty small. I recommend putting them in a little bag though. So
Yeah,
you don't
because
get
they
dust
pick up
and
they
stuff in
pick
them.
up
Yeah, they
stuff.
pick up
I've
everything.
I've been seeing something, and I actually invested in this for my the folks coming over to Ireland, but I've been seeing this trend online where people take the kneaded erasers and they get like they make a stamp
I've seen
out
that
of it.
too, yeah.
So you know how like in like I know in Antigua and in Ireland both they've got like the little caps on the
Mhm.
water pipe access, and like in Antigua it'll say agua obviously, and then in Ireland they say ishka, and they have these really beautiful designs. And so I got everybody a little kneaded eraser to make prints
Oh,
of
neat. That's a
the
great
different,
idea.
yeah, so you can like different ironwork or like a
Mhm.
special something on a door or whatever, you can take that kneaded eraser and make a little print and just use a stamp pad and print
That's
it
a
in your
great
book.
idea. I mean, anything like that to commemorate and share with other artists. Like I
Yeah,
just got a stamp. I got my first artist stamp that I can stamp in my sketchbooks or share with
I
artists.
know, I
To
need I
step
need to
and it
get
was
that, I need to get one of those. That's a
I
really great
yeah, it's
idea.
a great way because you can exchange things like stickers and cards, but this is actually a very cheap way to like
Yeah,
commemorate things, and people can use your stamp. And so I will take it with me next week to Poland, and then it will go to Romania with me in September. And it's just
nice.
a great way to share with other people's sketchbooks and give them something to remember you.
Yeah,
And then I'm stamping it in all my sketchbooks to identify myself, and it's just very helpful. And yeah, I think we've gone over a lot of stuff. I bring gouache sometimes, and now what I've been doing when I
yeah.
go out is I have a little um palette, and I'll put a link to this, but I don't have it close to me. I should have, of course, had it set up right next to me, because gouache, you can reactivate it, so I just
Oh,
it looks like a
I've
mess.
got you. Hold on, I've got you.
Okay. And
I
it's
have
great gouache, and you can just,
there's a
yes,
little like
exactly.
this. This is a little like enamel one, and in it
Just
I
keep
can
your
put
colors in it.
I have like a little watercolor thing that flattens into
I have
like,
one of those too.
and they fit together, and then it
Nice.
fits in the van. And so if I want to mix up, so not even just gouache, like I will often use if I'm wanting to use a bunch of one color and I want to mix it up,
Mhm.
I might mix it up in on that tray. So it is nice to have a little bit of an extra
Yeah, and I
workspace for
have,
sure.
yeah, I keep it to put colors on too. So a lot of
Yeah.
times I don't have to even put new stuff on my palette. I have all the colors I need, and I just mix it on there, and that's great for
Yep.
doing it on site. And then you can leave your tubes. I do bring tubes. I usually check my luggage. I said you said you carry it on yours,
I
so
do
everybody
carry
does it
on.
different.
So my
It's
makeup
harder to
bag,
bring tubes.
well, my makeup bag has in it a little thing of black ink, and it has in it a little tube of white gouache. So people are probably wondering, is she like one of those people?
Yeah, you're a
Yeah.
mime. Yeah, this is my
Like she's a
collapsible.
mime.
I
Yeah,
love
but
these
like
collapsible cups. Yeah, I love those.
exactly. I've got one of those, and
This is the
so you
Hanamule.
can, if you keep your you have your little baggie that you put in any of your liquid stuff. So
Mhm.
that's where I put my extra little tube of white gouache. I
Mhm.
have sometimes I'll travel with a little palette of gouache paints, but
Mhm.
those are all I dried them in layers. So they
Mhm.
solidified and they act like watercolors. So if I
Mhm.
want to paint with gouache along the go, I'll take that, but I probably won't be taking that with me. I'm just going
Yeah,
to
I
stick with
have my palette
watercolors.
that has yeah, I have my palette with my main gouache, and then
Hmm.
I also in my, little core watercolor set, I have a squirt of that sounds funny. I have a little squirt of gouache in there if I wanna add a little gouache to anything. I
Yep.
also just got this we were talking about this, I got this at Sketcherfest. It's a little bag that you can, you know, carry with you that you can put all your art supplies in,
Yeah.
and so I'm looking forward to taking that and maybe saving space in my purse. It's got like a little elastic band inside for all your brushes and stuff. So, and
Yeah.
pens. And I mean, so obviously you can bring very little if you want to, or you
Hmm.
can escalate. But, it's funny. I find out, no matter how many supplies I have, there's still the go tos like the pen,
Yeah.
the ballpoint or the, Tombow or one of my fine, basically a fine black pen. Sometimes I will sketch, like you said, like in a sepia pen or a purple pen,
Yeah.
because sometimes that's really fun. And I like to experiment and mix it up a little bit.
Do you ever find yourself, and this is maybe also a conversation for another day, but whether to what's his name who did the book Ink First and Sketch Later,
Oh,
Sketch
Mike
First and Ink.
Barra. Hi, Mike. He's
Yeah,
taught at the summit before.
yeah, he's great, and and that was always a question, so I love that he wrote a book about it. But whether you like, I will often go even without pen or pencil and just go straight in with paint. Do you ever do that yourself?
I have, and sometimes that's a fun tech. I mean, most of the time I do pen first, especially if I'm doing like 10 to 15 minute stops, and
Yeah,
then maybe add a little bit of color for tone and have it very vignetted.
yeah,
But there's a lot of times when I will just do a painting, and especially with gouache, I
mhm,
don't, but I usually pencil with gouache first.
yeah,
And but you could just sketch with paint if you
yeah,
wanted to.
yeah,
That is not how I
exactly.
usually do it, but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't. I mean,
Right.
do what works. I think what we try to say with all of this is do what works best for you. And I like to experiment all the time. I mean,
Yeah.
don't get caught in a rut either. Like maybe do one drawing, and I mean that's what I try to do in my spreads. Is like I'll have some stuff in gouache, some stuff in, and I'm trying to grab my like where I was just at Sketcherfest. Like in one spread, I will do stuff in gouache, stuff in pen, stuff
Yeah.
in, it's like a mixture of stuff. And
Well,
it's
and
got stuff pasted in.
that
Yeah.
variety on a page spread is really interesting. That's
Yeah.
why I like to include, ephemera and quotes
Oh,
and
yeah.
writing and stamps, and because all of that stuff kind of together can really make a page
Exactly.
light up. So,
Now, when you're traveling, do you usually bring your hat and stool? I always do. I've got my
no.
little okay, so you don't bring those things.
No, I don't because I find that I'm better just, crisscross applesauce on the ground. So what I do have is a little right here actually in my Ireland pile. It's a little like a little picnic um kind of thing, and it just like it comes in this little bag. So if it's wet up when I
So it's
fold it
like a
up, I
sit
can just
upon kind of thing.
it is, except it's a almost like a little you could sit 2 or 3 people on it. It's big enough. But it's nice and waterproof, like if I set it on damp ground, my bum won't be wet when I get up, which is nice.
Which is the
Um,
worst.
it is kind of uncomfortable. But with regard to chairs, if I'm out doing, like, urban sketching, I might bring one
Hmm.
of my chairs. I've got a couple different ones. But if I'm traveling, that's just too much space to
Hmm.
occupy with. But like you said, I try not to check a bag unless I'm staying for more than a month. So,
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, I always check a bag and I usually have my chair in there. Now, my new hat, you can pack a hat by stuffing it. but my new hat is a little bit wider of a perimeter than my suitcase is, so I bring that on with me.
Yeah.
But it all depends on your style. I mean, I like to bring the chair because it does, like, there are, especially if you're in an urban setting,
Right.
sometimes, and this is actually sadly more in the US than a lot of places have taken away benches. So
Yeah.
it's hard to find a place to sit. So it's nice to have that stool there. But there are a lot of downtown areas, like I assume Ireland's like this, but I know that Poland and Romania are like this, where they have a lot of big open squares with a lot of seating.
Yeah.
Now that
Yeah.
still may not
Like
be
a Central
perfect.
Park kind of thing.
Exactly.
And it might not be perfect, but I think honestly, you can find a great place to sketch for the price of a cup of coffee in most places.
True,
Like
true.
go like especially if you're in an urban setting,
Hmm.
go and get a half pint and sit and sketch the world go
Even better
by.
than
Like,
coffee.
yeah. Yeah, so that's what we often will do in Ireland. Like we'll have a whole group and half of them will want to go off shopping, but half of them are still keen on sketching. So we'll find a little place to get a half pint
Or
and continue
gelato.
sketching. Or a gelato, exactly like you guys did at the end of your workshop. So, and I was trying to think, oh, another thing that I would have, and I know we're running late on time, but um, I would always suggest having a hat of some kind, dependent on the weather, but also earphones.
Oh, that's a
Because
good idea.
yeah, because I know like I can be a bit distractible. So putting on earphones with some music or something keeps me from like even if just in one ear, so I can still hear what's going on around me, but it keeps kind of my brain from taking in too much.
Hmm.
But also it for the shy people who like that's one of the most common questions about, what do you do if you're out drawing and people talk to you, God forbid. Well, A, you might have a great conversation, but B, if you don't want them to talk to you, get the headphones with the wires
Hmm.
because people most often will not bother you if you're tapped into some kind of headphone. And so
Hmm.
if you really are distractible and don't want to be bothered, that's something to have in your kit, whether you turn them on or not. If you have
Hmm.
wired headphones in your kit, if it's like
That's very
super busy.
discreet. I like that.
Yeah,
Um,
it's just kind of for most people it's a signal to, I'm doing this, please don't talk to me. I if I'm really distracted, I will put headphones in, but I actually enjoy the interaction with
Me too.
locals, especially when I'm traveling. I really love it. So,
Maybe
um,
people love seeing you sketch. They're always really interested.
yeah, they're
So,
really interested and it is an interesting thing. Let's see. I often have like in this kit, I've got these little Barbie purses.
oh yes, those are so important.
Little Barbie purses because if it's at all breezy, you don't want your page flipping over onto wet paint or wet ink. So I've
And
got a
those are the
couple of
best
those,
clips. I love those alligator
the
clips.
little alligator clips. I sometimes carry a few things of washi tape
Yes,
in
I have
here.
tape too.
I
And that's
have a
great for the
library
wash.
stamp, a
I need to
date
get one of
stamp.
those. I need to get one of those by Romania,
They're
actually.
great. They last for years. And then I have a few little colors of little stamps or stamp pads, I mean, and
Oh, nice.
they all fit in there. Um, yeah,
That's a great idea. I need to get one
and a
of
glue
those.
stick if you've got something you want to stick in. It's nice to have.
Yeah, I always have this. This is essential for like, and actually it's good and like if you want to glue flowers in your sketchbook or whatever,
Yes.
because I
Yeah.
did Mod Podge on my Romania sketchbook and that was a bad idea. You just want to use a little bit
Yeah.
of glue stick and it will look beautiful.
Mod Podge and even like the matte medium, if it's not matte, if it's like semi-gloss kind of color
It's
or
a
even
goopy. It's goopy and sticky.
it's goopy and sticky and it will stick to the page on the other side. So
Hmm.
another thing that you might want to have in your kit is maybe a bit of like freezer paper or deli paper. Like have a little bit of that folded up kind of in the bottom
Oh,
or in
that's
the
really a
pocket.
smart thing to have for your travel sketchbook. I should
Yeah.
start doing that actually.
Absolutely, like having something because sometimes you are like, say you're out sketching and a rain cloud decides to open up, to be able to throw down something on top of your drawing, shut the book, and run for cover. It's not a bad idea to have a bit of it's like, I guess you call it freezer paper. You could also use maybe parchment paper, um,
Or wax paper,
or waxed paper, any of those kinds of things. Deli paper could work. But having those, just a couple sheets, and they don't take up any space. You can have them just in the back of your sketchbook, and then you'd be prepared. And another, like if you're into the watercoloring and you're in dry places, you want it saves time if you use one of these little squirt bottles,
yeah, I
like
have
a
one of
little,
those. Those are
yeah,
cute.
because you can go over your paint, and instead of like trying to, get each one ready to go with being all moist and stuff, um, just doing that, you get all the paints kind of zhuzhed up, and then you can be faster at painting. So
Mhm.
it just kind
And
of
I
helps
always
save
have
you a little
paper
time.
towels, to
Oh yeah,
dab paint on.
absolutely.
Like,
Absolutely. I mean,
just a couple.
well, in the paper towel range, so I will sometimes have like a napkin from like an
Mhm.
expensive place, like spas and steakhouses kind of napkins. Um, those are great. So if you ever go to like a fancy dinner at a steakhouse, like check
Mhm.
out the napkins because they're often really good, and just stash a few extra in your purse. But I love to take something and tie it like around my
Yes,
wrist.
that's a great way to test your brush too.
Yeah, to either
Or an
test your
old
brush,
sock.
to, yeah, an old sock, or those do you remember in the 70s when people played tennis and
Yes.
they wore those little sweatbands? You can buy those for next to nothing and just put it on your wrist. And it's not even just about testing your brush, but it's about mitigating the water,
Yeah, yeah,
because,
it's to get it the right.
I think one of the biggest, not mistakes, but like things that can kind of affect your painting is whether you're mitigating the water
Yes.
properly. Like if it's too dry, the marks aren't going to do what you want. And if it's too wet, your colors aren't going to do what you want.
And
So
then you're
finding
fighting it.
that happy medium, you're sort of dancing between the 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 water, the paint, the paper towel, the water, the paint, and just kind of you're dancing around. And it's like it becomes over time automatic. You probably do it without even thinking about it anymore, Christina. But like
I think we all do.
yeah,
We've
we get
done.
there eventually, but
Yeah.
that's one of the most common questions, is like, how do I know whether to daub off and how much to daub off, on the paper towel or on the paper or whatever. And so it's nice to have like a little either a side of your page, if you want to use it as an element in your sketchbook, where you just sort of test
Mhm.
what it's doing, and then you could daub off some water and test again, or you could have a little separate postcard that can be your
Mhm.
tester. um so
Yeah,
it's
there's
a
a lot of
good,
great ways to mitigate that, like you were describing, and
yeah,
it's a way to control what you're doing, and the wristband or like a paper towel, just making sure you have those things really helps. Actually, the wristband's a great idea. Cutting an
yeah,
old sock up is a great way
yeah.
to do it too.
The
If you,
sock is a great idea. I just have this old little, it's like a little rag, but it
hmm
ties perfectly around my wrist. And another thing, I'm just kind of going fast because I know we're almost out of time, but like for my the beam set that I have,
hmm
I created a little sample of colors,
yeah, a lot of people love to do that,
and
and
then
that's a
I
smart way to see.
laminated it.
That's really a cool idea.
So, and that way I know the colors as I'm using them, and I'll I just have that little laminate thing tucked into my bag, along with a couple extra brushes and pencils and things like that, and even maybe an extra book. Like sometimes I'll take more than one book if I'm bringing the whole kit and caboodle. Um,
Yeah, I
yeah,
mean, there's just and it just depends what materials you're planning to use,
yeah.
and like I
You
said,
could
I think
carry
what.
around a big suitcase of stuff, and that,
Mhm,
like, if that makes you happy, go for it. But it really is, that's why the local urban sketching stuff, especially like we've got such a great group. If you are going to travel somewhere, get out with your local group, or get out with yourself if you can't find a local group, and see how it feels. What materials are you
exactly.
missing that you didn't bring, or what you brought that you didn't use over a couple times? And like that's how you hone what what to bring with you when you're actually gonna like the rubber hits the road, you're going to have to carry this stuff through the airport. So,
That
that's
really is the biggest consideration, and airports are getting really strict about the weight of your bags and stuff like
yes.
that. So you have to, and there's a lot of people, and
Mhm.
so those are the considerations you have to think about too. Is
Yep.
how much am I allowed to take? Can I just wear one outfit the whole time so I have room for art supplies?
Yeah, I mean
Is it
that's a
all?
whole I actually that's one of my favorite things to deep dive on like podcasts and YouTubes about is what to pack and how to pack because I've got like a bit of a princess side of me, like I like my clothes and I like my
Hmm.
comforts. But there are ways that I've learned over the years there are ways and nobody's going to notice if you're wearing the same damn thing every day. It doesn't
That's
matter.
true. That's true. Yeah,
And
they don't.
scarves and wraps go a long way to
Mhm.
creating an air of elegance when the rest of you looks like Catwoman. So, like,
Yes, I look
you
forward to being
really
able to wear those again.
yeah, well, maybe one day
Okay.
we'll see.
Well, yeah, I
But
get
no,
too
it's
warm when I
great.
have them on now, so I'm like,
Yeah, that's true, that's true.
when I'm not having hot flashes anymore, I look forward to wearing scarves.
Well, gosh, this has been amazing, Christina. I
Yeah,
just
it's
feel like
another great
there's
talk.
even yeah, and there's even more I could say about, the colored pencils or like the ink tints. I have a little stash of my ink tints blocks. I don't, do you ever use these?
I have not used those, but they look really
They
interesting.
they are like water soluble pencils, but not annoying. They carry a lot of pigment and they're water soluble. They're really fabulous. So we can talk a little bit more about those at another time. But I've
Well,
actually got
and
a little stash of them in my kit
ooh,
to take to Ireland because covering a bit of ground in between raindrops is important when you're in
yes.
Ireland. So it I've discovered while I'm here that you can get really rich color in one spot with just a hit of
And what is
one of
that
these little.
brand?
They're by Derwent,
Oh, okay, so they're
Derwent.
Derwent. Uh-huh.
Derwent ink tents, all one word.
Yes, okay, I've seen them before. Yes, I know what you're
Yeah,
talking about.
they come in these little trays, like little, um, metal kind of trays. So I took them out of that and threw them in a little baggie so I could put everything together into my van. So if it doesn't fit in the van, it doesn't go. So
Well, that's really good advice. And anyone listening, if you have questions about art supplies or want to recommend something that you love that's your go-to, feel free to in the comments.
yeah,
In
we're always
future,
learning right along with you.
and
So
while we're live, we actually can see questions real time when people are asking them. So in the future, feel free to type in the little chat box that's next to our picture on YouTube, and we can answer them in real time. So hopefully we'll see you in September. We'll
yeah.
have the date soon.
Yep.
And thanks everyone for joining us.
Thanks, Christina. Bye, everyone.